Terracotta Army. Whoa. So if you haven't heard about this, this is the new game from Board and Dice. It's an Essen release. I think it's available for pre-order right now for in the region of 40 British pounds, which is of course now the equivalent of 40 European euros.
Yep.
And the game is designed by Adam Kopinski, who we know from Nemesis, and my big size because I'm going to butcher this designer's name, and I'm so sorry. Przemysław Fornal. I'm sure that's very wrong, but and I do apologize. The game has art by Zuzana Kolakowska and Jan Lipinski and Alexander Zawada. It's published by Board and Dice, and this is a review copy that they very kindly sent me ahead of the Essen convention. So if you don't know anything about this game, it's got two major functions to it. It is a Euro game. It's probably, I don't actually know what it says on the box in terms of time. That says 90 to 2 hours. Yeah, I think that's fairly reasonable. I think it's a bit longer than that.
It's 2 hours.
Especially, yeah, it's 2 hours at least, probably. I mean, if you're two players and you both know the game really well, it could be less.
That's true of every game.
That's true of every game. Exactly. Not a super helpful statement. But the game is effectively two major considerations, this dial here and this catacomb here. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be trying to accrue the most victory points so that you can be the winner. And the way you earn victory points is through this situation over here. Because it's a number of rounds, down here, the round tracker is here, 5 rounds, and then it's over, and we're going to have asymmetrical scoring on each round there. Not asymmetrical, sorry, randomly seeded scoring positions down here.
It's kind of a metaphor for life, really, isn't it? It's a number of rounds, then it ends.
Then it ends. Then it's over. I hope you had a good time.
And there's end game scoring when you die, right?
End game scoring is, yeah, we're just going to evaluate who had the most fun, who did the best. So what's sort of the unique element of this game? You'll see there's points everywhere. Points, it's just points flying at your face. There's this, which is the sort of the statue area. So there's 4 kinds of statues in the game. Sorry, there's 4 kinds of soldier statues and a whole bunch of these little special statues as well. Let's go over here and see if we can see this. There he is. This is the horse. But we've got we've got lots of these little guys here as well. We've got a crossbow man. Get out of the way, horse. Here's the crossbow man. There's a little praying guy here as well. But these are sort of generic ones, and then we've got the special tray over here, which is filled with soldiers. And there's the spear guy here. Not a different kind of crossbow guy. Not kneeling, but standing this time. Wow. And he's distinct from the other one. So it's important that you note the difference between standing and kneeling crossbow guy. And we've got... who's this? This is halberd guy. Most of my halberds came like this, by the way. But that's okay, because they don't actually need to kill anyone. They're just made of They're made of mud, so that's why it looks like that. And the final guy is sword guy. And... if you want to be successful at the game, effectively you've got to manage 2 things. You've got to manage to put out your guys into the rows and columns here in a way that's going to score you points, and you've got to put out these special ones with those guys in a way that's also going to score you points. And all of these statues have different functions. Sorry, all the gray statues have different functions. The soldier statues, the colored ones, terracotta, variety colored terracotta ones, they all have basically got a special ability. When you buy them, you get a special ability. Additionally, there's also points along the side here. It goes 8 and then diminishes, so you get points for building them early. But you want to build them into big sort of groups, and then for sort of winning, you'll put your bases on them. You've got your colored bases here. You'll put your colored bases on them as they come out. And then you will earn a bunch of points for sort of creating big collectives that you own the most statues in. So It's very much a spatial puzzle at its core, and you need to be good at this spatial puzzle, but there's lots of different ways to do this and sort of try to configure it in order for you to get the most points. Um, that's where this dial comes in here, right? Because what's kind of interesting is, I mean, this dial is the action selection dial. It's gonna You can potentially move it around for money. And when you do an action, you essentially pick a column and then you move down the column and do the actions shown in the column. And it's a worker placement game, and there's space here for one worker or a special worker. So you can unlock the special worker, and then you will be able to access a space that someone else has maybe blocked you out of. If you put your special worker down first, then you block everyone out of that column. There's quite a lot of competition for columns, but these actions, they allow you to get the resources needed for the game. They allow you to invest in these positions down here, which are sort of mastery of the different techniques used to make the statues, and the way they manifest in the game is just kind of upgrades. So these are sort of upgrade areas that improve your gameplay, and they give you maybe a little income at the end of the round or something like that. One other thing I'll mention is that you've got this resource called clay that you kind of need to make the statues, and when you get the clay, it's all nice and ready to use, to make up your statues there. But at the end of every round, the clay dries up, and then you have to go and get it wet again, or that costs an action, or else you can't use it anymore.
Huh.
So I think so. I only played this once. I played it at 2. We both enjoyed it. It was quite well received. We were very worried about limited action numbers at higher player counts, and downtime at higher player counts. But I haven't had a chance to explore it, so I don't know how true that would be. But it's already pretty ruthless at 2. Particularly these gray statues. There's going to be 4 of each. They're going to be in these little marketplaces here, and as they diminish, they get more and more expensive, and so that this will be particularly competitive in a game with 3 or 4 players. I think at 4 players, the downtime might not scale well. There doesn't seem to be. It seems like the only mitigation for higher player counts is everyone has less workers, so you'll just get to do less, which is not ideal. But it'll keep the game length down, but it'll just make every action super important. And we found that optimizing the actions, even in the 2-player game, was quite difficult. It was possibly just that we were feeling that because we actually had the full complement of workers, and that meant that we were taking a lot of actions, which meant in turn that we might have had some redundant actions, or more scope for redundant actions, because we got to take the full complement. And maybe at a higher player count, you get, because you only get a few, there's fewer redundant ones, but I don't think so, because I think the efficacy of the actions really is about the position of these 2 wheels, and it's $2 to rotate a wheel, and that's quite expensive. $2, two monies from historically appropriate money. So I don't know. I think I think I'd like to try it at 3. I don't know if I'd try it at 4, but at 2, yeah, compelling little spatial puzzle, action selection. If you like your abstract spatial puzzles, I say abstract. I mean, it is thematic.
Are you looking forward to trying it with 3, or is it just that is it more of an academic interest?
So I'm pretty good at spatial puzzles, and I do quite enjoy them as well. So, but the funny thing is, they're not my sort of first choice of sort of mechanism either.
Yeah.
I definitely like to see it at 3, but I think what my favorite part of this is sort of the tug of war around who might control the groups of statues. And I'm not sure if that would really manifest as viciously as I'd like to engender the level of player interaction I'd like. I think that in a way I would like players to have more access to this, and for it to be a bit less about the sort of Euro management side of it and a bit more around the competition in here. And there's kind of a cool system as well where there's a piece. they're the inspectors, and they walk up and down these rows along the side of the mausoleum here, and they look along the columns and they look along the rows and they score those as the game progresses. And one of the actions you can take allows you to advance them a space, so they might just miss a row that someone's set up, and that's kind of mean and fun. But
how do you mitigate that?
I think there's a way to move them backwards as well.
Okay, fine.
But you could also, I think there's a way to move them backwards, but you could also just then try to move them even further around so they get back around to your row before the game ends.
Why is the board aggressively beige?
It's so beige. I think it's because the theme is terracotta, but it might just be an excuse, to just use beige.
Yeah, it just genuinely, the visual impact of it made me just not want to engage with it at all.
I mean, what I do like about this game is the miniatures are actually far more than most miniatures games have real importance.
Sure,
like the shape of the shape of the base is important. The facing of the miniature is important. The actual type of the miniature is important.
Ultimately, do you recommend it? I know you've only played it once, but
yeah. So I've only managed to play it once. I would like to play it again at 3 for sure, and I think that would help me sort of establish. I mean, what I like about, or whether I really like it. I'm trying to also think of what I would compare it to, because I like the combination of the Euro resource mechanisms of the dial. I like the combination of this board or I like the situation on this board over here. In the game I played, my opponent and I took very different strategies, so this board didn't really engage the kind of player interaction I wanted, and I don't know if at higher player counts it would. I think his strategy only really worked because I wasn't paying attention to it, and no one else was there to stop him. At higher player counts, which was basically his strategy was to sort of set up a ton of small groups and then just score points for winning them all.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas my strategy was to place out these guys here, the gray special pieces, and then just benefit. This one is not really doing anything, but these guys put out special scoring mechanisms, and so by putting them out, I could just create the perfect sort of scoring opportunities for me, which I did. And I won, although it was a very close game. The thing that's sort of holding me back from a sort of a resounding recommendation on this one, I mean, provided you like what I've already said about it, which is to say, abstract puzzle, sort of scoring, like dynamic scoring abstract puzzle that is entirely informed by resource management and action selection. If you like the sound of that, then listen on. But my primary concern is that I think at 2, I'm not sure there's enough player interaction in the mausoleum, and the action selection wheel doesn't seem quite brutal enough. And then at 3 or 4, there might be too much downtime, and the action wheel might actually be too unforgiving because people are taking all those spots. So. And one of the mitigations is this upgraded worker type, but they're actually really hard to come by. In the 2-player game, I didn't get a single one, and it didn't matter at all. But I think in the 3 or 4-player game, they'd be much more important, but then they're actually really hard to get, and you could quite easily, someone could get into first place and sort of take that opportunity from you. I mean, you can still always rotate this wheel as the positions around here fill up. Rotating the wheel might not even help you, because you could just rotate it into another position someone else has got, and they can only go one step sort of in each direction, so you only have so much control. In theory, I like it a lot, but I don't think its ideas have really manifested at the current player counts, at the 2-player count, so I really need to try it at 3 before I know for sure.
Okay. Thank you very much.
As I say, if you there is there's a sort of there's some cool little ideas here as well, and you can get these weapons which allow you to sort of trigger special abilities off all the different statues. They all have powers, so I think this is definitely on the heavier side of the games we've been talking about today. Lots of little interworking mechanisms, lots of stuff to pay attention to, lots of sort of different effects to keep in mind all the time. So you're not... this is your main game for the evening, I reckon.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not a filler.
It's not a filler. But if you want to know more, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk about it again when I get to the table of 3.